Donald Trump has turned the stock market into his own massive grift this week, as we have seen the big old Trump dump and pump. And getting them that way around is important. Some of you will have already seen the charts. I'm sure many of you will. This is the Dow Jones over the past kind of week. It has seen a massive slide down as Donald Trump has introduced massive tariffs across the world. And then a humongous spike just towards the end there, as he decided he was going to place a 90-day pause on most of them, not including China at the moment, and only on those above 10%. In the UK, we found ourselves in a weird place where the fact that the tariffs he originally imposed are lower has meant that we don't get them paused. And although this is the Dow Jones, most indexes in the US and across the world look reasonably similar to this over the past week or so. Big old slide, as it seemed as though the global economic order was going to be entirely upturned, as it still may be. And then this humongous spike at the end. Tuesday saw the biggest market swing in the S&P 500 ever recorded. And apparently a few days earlier was the first. By that they mean that it was the biggest kind of swing in terms of number go down, number fly back up again. That has happened at least since 1967. And all of this could be put down to chaos. It could be down to ideology. And I'm certain there are elements of both in there. However, there's one aspect of this which has really drawn my attention. And that is this post. This, for those of you that aren't aware of it, is Truth Social, Donald Trump's own personal social media platform, which, if you've never sort of been on it before, whenever I do go onto it, I am always shocked by just how much of a Twitter clone it is, which is also true of Mastodon and Blue Sky. Like, I think there is an extent to which Twitter just kind of nailed the particular kind of public social media platform it wanted to be. Trump's post, just a short while before he announced the 90-day pause of tariffs, simply said, "This is a great time to buy DJT." So this post is fascinating for many reasons. Because it's in some regards what we might call outsider trading. You know, usually if a politician wants to do some financial crimes and wants to do some insider trading, they will buy and or sell some stocks or shares themselves. They might tell a couple of friends. Donald Trump took the new direction of deciding to kind of share this information with everyone. Or maybe not everyone, but maybe specifically the people who use his platform, Truth Social. And I think what we're witnessing is the very first scam presidency. A complete and total lack of interest in even trying to hide the ways in which this guy is engaged in a big old grift. I think it's important to say that Donald Trump is not only doing kind of short-term making some money stuff here, right? I do think it's important to say that the tariffs are also driven by a real ideological fervor. It is very much the case that Trump has been a big sort of like anti-China guy for decades, from before he even came into politics. there's also a lot of incompetence in there. Right, we've seen this with Doge, we've seen this with the tariffs, right? This belief in, just do the thing, shake everything up and see what happens, and it'll probably be okay. And not realizing that complex systems are complex. And also not understanding the relationships that he's built. So Casca Gilson saying in the chat there that I wonder if Elon's going to be fired for having opposed the recent tariffs. Trump had previously, a big part of his early presidency was the fact that he had built all these relationships with the tech guys, right? That he had Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Sundar Pichai and all of that crew came to his inauguration, right? They sat closer to the front than many of his cabinet picks. And yet, he sort of didn't realise that, or he at least didn't have the political news to know that they might be a bit annoyed if he tanked the stock market. And yet, while ideology and incompetence might be part of the recipe here, there is also clearly just this interest in a little bit of scamming, right? So some of you will remember, because this is not the first time, right? Some of you will remember Trump coin. Can we find the original website? GetTrumpMemes.com. So 2 days before Donald Trump's inauguration, I believe, he again posted on Truth Social a link to the GetTrumpMemes.com website. This incredibly reputable looking website here where you could buy your Trump meme coins. Trump, the crypto president. Trump are now freely tradable on the blockchain. And what happened, as does happen with many of these meme coins, is that he announced it, price shot up, price went down, price sort of went up again, and then gradually the whole project just kind of disappeared. And in this project too, there seemed to be some early buyers who at the very least bought their Trump coin alarmingly quickly after that post went out. Some would say suspiciously quickly, in terms of, in fact, experts, quote unquote here apparently, suggest that these people may have been tipped off. It was like seconds afterwards, I believe. Okay, 2 minutes passed between Trump sending out his message on Truth Social and some of these early buyers of the Trump coin. And of course, as the price hit its high, they very quickly got rid of those, the coins that they'd bought, selling them to all of the people that were rushing in from Truth Social to try and get in on the action, making sure they cashed out and made a fortune, whilst then everyone who arrived a little bit later to the party bought these Trump coins, which soon turned out to be worth jack shit. Madcat also posting in the chat that the Justice Department also effectively shut down its cryptocurrency fraud department. Which we'll kind of leave there as a piece of information without comment. But crucially, right, alongside these early investors who potentially, maybe, allegedly were tipped off, and whether or not those people have connection to the Trump administration or Trump or any of his companies, what definitely did happen is that the companies that had kind of made this Trump coin a reality made a huge amount of money on the trading fees, right? So when you buy and sell the Trump coin, some of your money goes to the creator of the Trump coin. I think there's 3 companies that were involved in it. And so, as things stand, the people involved, regardless of what the Trump coin does in value going forward, whether it goes up or down, have already walked away with over $86 million in trading fees. And this is back in February this number is from. Or there has been less trading of it since. But if there has been more, they will have picked up some extra cash too. And it's interesting the way these two things combine, right? Because in terms of the Trump meme coin, we have a good old classic pump and dump, right? Donald Trump tells everyone that this coin is really cool and that it's going to be great. A couple of people buy up a bunch of the coins. Everyone rushes on the coin. They sell off. It's been pumped. It's dumped. Game mostly over. It's had a couple of rallies. One in February when Trump tweeted about it again. One a little bit later, but it has gradually just kind of fallen off a cliff again. With the stock market itself, we have more of a dump and then pump. So I don't think the dump and pump was entirely about market manipulation. I think there's ideological stuff going on there as well. However, I do think it's a nice little bonus. And the extent to which this just is the grift presidency is fascinating. In fact, it's to the extent that I was listening, most mornings I will listen to the FT news briefing. But I was listening to the news briefing the other day, and even they were using this language, right? They were talking about how within all of this turmoil surrounding the tariffs, this was before the dump got pumped, and they were like, yeah, there'll be loads of grifting opportunities for Trump. Like, that is the point we're at, is that probably the most respected newspaper in the world, and a very serious newspaper at that. Like, of all the newspapers, like the Financial Times is the one that is most just like his. It's interesting. Like, there is good writers there, but like, it's very much like, here is the information. Even they are just like, yeah, this guy's going to get up to some grifting. Some of you who watch my YouTube channel may remember that maybe 2 years ago now, I made a video about scams. And part of the idea of this video was that I was really interested in the way in which scams of various kinds, particularly the kind of get-rich-quick schemes, often seemed to attempt to mirror real-world stuff that goes on in the economy, right? But I was interested in the way in which a lot of these scams, like, not only borrow ideas from our kind of quote-unquote real economy, but also gain some of their legitimacy through that. So something like drop shipping, which I think I'm talking about here, in some kind of horrible, obnoxious character mode, is drop shipping, where you buy some cheap nonsense off of AliExpress and then put it up on a website that looks a bit fancier and sell it on and pretend it's kind of worth more than it was. You are effectively Nike in that situation, right? Nike makes trainers in sweatshops and then sells them as often a luxury good. And I will say that as someone who runs, Nike trainers can be good, right? However, there is the business model is that the thing is made for as cheaply as possible in another country, and then the company is really like a marketing operation to upsell that thing. Regardless of how good the shoes are or not, they are extremely cheap to make. The upsell is all in the marketing. And this is true for a bunch of other kind of grifts as well, right? What else do we have? Like, there's a big thing which I'm not sure if I talk about this in that video. There's a thing where so Amazon has this thing called Amazon FBA, which is fulfilled by Amazon, where if you want to and the kind of proper use for it is that if you want to sell a product on Amazon, you send it to them first so that it's in their warehouses, so that when people buy it, they get it very quickly, and usually through Prime. And in actual fact, this is part of Amazon's kind of big scheme, is that if sellers want to have their goods available on Prime, then they kind of have to use this service. But there is a big thing in these kind of get-rich-quick circles where the kind of business model is that you can kind of flip products, and you can find a good or a product in a shop near you, maybe in like a big box store, that is currently selling for less than it is selling for on Amazon. And then you can sell these things on Amazon using the Fulfilled by Amazon service and step for profit, right? And that, for its legitimacy, relies on the fact that it's actually quite similar to arbitrage, which is a thing that happens in financial markets and kind of in reality as well, where I will buy 100 barrels of oil from one place to then sell them on for more money somewhere else, but in a way that I never have to move the thing myself. Like, I'm not providing a service by picking it up in one place and selling it somewhere else. I'm just kind of buying and selling it and simply making money from the fact that in one place it is cheaper than in another place, right? And so I was really interested in the ways in which so many of these scams gained their legitimacy from real-world business models. And then later on in the video, I kind of explore some of the ways in which, actually that's because some of the business models that succeed the most in our current marketplace are kind of grifty, right? The phrase that I keep using in relation to a lot of this stuff now is the idea that everyone wants to be a landlord. Like, Uber is just kind of landlordism for the concept of taxis, right? People talk about Uber as though it's revolutionized taxis. It sort of hasn't. You still have the same system wherein someone comes and picks you up and drops you off somewhere else. The same person who is driving might have previously driven a taxi. The big difference is that Uber now takes 30% of the fee for effectively providing the same service as the person who used to pick up the phone and then dispatch the taxi, right? And so I've been kind of exploring this for some time, and it is something that I've continued to think about since. But the way in which I previously thought about it, this kind of idea of like, how blurred are the lines between kind of scams over here, get quick rich schemes over here, and sort of the real economy over here. The ways in which I've tended to think about it are the ways in which grifts gain legitimacy from sounding like they are real things that exist in like really legitimate ways in the real world, and the ways in which the fact that you can do that tells you something about the real businesses, right? So the fact that there's another kind of grifty business model where what you do is you try and insert yourself in a kind of transaction by trying to become the top result on Google for like window washing in South London or whatever, or window washing in probably a small town is probably the better thing. So like window washing in York, no offense to anyone from York if it's not a small town, but and then you like sell leads to people who are window washers, and effectively what you're doing is you're knocking their website down and then selling them the right to still have people get in touch with them. And you know, the fact that you can kind of sell that as kind of being a bit like Uber does tell you something about Uber, right? But what we have here, in the case of Donald Trump's, well, first his Trump coin, and then all of this kind of, you know, him letting the stock market die a death, and then sending out a post, and then pausing the tariff so that it bounces back up. We have a system where effectively the stock market is not only like looking a little bit like Bitcoin or meme coins, but is being manipulated in exactly the same way. What we are seeing is the real life stock market not only doing similar things to kind of a grifty, scammy operation because it happens to have some commonalities and the grifters have taken some inspiration from the kind of more legitimate thing. But the more legitimate thing, the global stock market, actively taking inspiration from the scammy, grifty thing, right? In terms of meme coins or Bitcoin or, you know, this is effectively those people who, you know, there are people out there who will tell you that they can add you to a WhatsApp group and they will message you to tell you the right time to buy and sell Dogecoin, right? Or Trump coin or Pepe the Frog coin, or whatever. But often they'll do smaller ones because they can use the WhatsApp group to do the pump and dump. And that is effectively what Donald Trump himself has started doing. In fact, there was some discussion in an article I was reading, I think in The Guardian, about the fact that Trump signed off this truth, this post on Truth Social with DJT. Because on the one hand, DJT is Donald J. Trump, but at the same time, DJT is also the NASDAQ listing for, or the kind of like ticker tape listing for the Trump Media and Technology Group Corp, which owns Truth Social. So is he saying a great time to buy stocks more broadly, or is he saying now's a great time to buy DJT, you know, stocks in his specific company? And in many ways it doesn't matter, because either he's saying that and it's going to go up, but also this message here is going to be extremely good news for Truth Social. Because on the one hand, it's letting Trump help his supporters by, you know, presumably some of them will have gone out and bought stocks because Donald Trump told them to, and then they'll have been rewarded because the stock market went back up because he paused the tariffs. But downstream of that, what happens is that Truth Social will probably get more users because people are going to want to be on there so that they can follow Donald Trump and have notifications set up so that when he says buy or when he says sell, they can try and get in there and jump in on that action, right? And then the question becomes, well, are the posts that Donald Trump puts out publicly telling people to buy and sell, is he telling a small group of other people to buy and sell before that so that he can, you know, he can now manipulate the market through retail investors rather than just through tariffs? But the extent to which, like, you know, meme coins and Bitcoin and Ethereum, all of the kind of more legitimate cryptocurrencies as well, and all of the kind of like new sort of future futures markets and kind of that are kind of like betting in disguise, it does tell you something about the real world stock market, that it is possible to kind of make this weird make-believe version of the stock market, because that's kind of what meme coins are. Like, the fact that you can make this almost parodied version of the stock market and people will treat it with the same seriousness already tells you something about the stock market and the ways in which the price of a company's stock is maybe not actually entirely a reflection of what investors think the performance of that company will be in the future, right? It's the fact that you can build whole systems wherein it's kind of like the stock market, but the thing itself has no underlying value, and people will still treat it with the same kind of vibe. That already tells you something about, you know, the efficient market hypothesis. Like, maybe stock prices are maybe not as kind of real as one would imagine. And yet this feels like a whole other level. And the fact it's so brazen is fascinating, right? This is very much the grift presidency, and he is unafraid to use it in that way.